Wednesday. We are jumping on for our live class together. So excited. Oh my goodness. Lots of greatness that we're going to be sharing together today. Super excited. All right. So we're just going to jump in and get started for today. Oops, I hit the wrong button. So sorry about that. All right, so welcome to the Air Down Your Jeep Tires for Trail Riding Fun. Have you heard, or maybe someone has even told you, that you don't need to air your tires down? Misinformation can be frustrating. But the great news is in this class, I will give you the right answers about airing down your tires and what you really need to know before you head out on a trail ride with your Jeep. And this is any trail ride with your Jeep. With the correct information, you will feel confident and prepared. So give me a hashtag yes if you're looking for a safe way to enjoy your Jeep on the trails and you're ready to increase your knowledge, skills, and confidence for you and your Jeep. So as you're jumping on here, let me know where you are watching from. I love to know what states are being represented, where you amazing ladies are located. So let me know as you're jumping on here what state you're watching from as well. And in case you're new, hello, I am Kristen DeLibero from LadyJeepers.com. I help Lady Jeepers, so women who own Jeeps, to safely enjoy their Jeeps on the trail and customize and design their Jeeps so that they can confidently create a life of adventure without fear. We do this using our Confident Trail University, our classes, our in-person events, and private consult and concierge services. So before we jump in to get started, I want to see where you ladies are watching from today. Oh, we got California. Ooh, and I got a hashtag. Yes, I love it. That is what we are on here for today. Oh, California, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania. Let's see where else. Maryland. I love it, ladies. Chattanooga. Ooh, Las Vegas. I love that one. Mary, I am jealous. I have Las Vegas on my bucket list. Really want to do a Las Vegas trip. We got Dallas, Florida, New Hampshire, Nevada. I love it. Lots of yeses coming in. That makes me so happy that you are ready to look for a way to safely take your skills for you and your Jeep to the next level. Love it. And let me make sure I haven't missed any comments. We got Illinois. I love it. Hello, ladies. North Carolina, Utah. Love Utah. We were just out there in Moab. It was amazing. All right. Well, keep letting me know if you are jumping on where you're watching from. We're going to keep going. I have so much I really want to share. I was really excited about putting this class together because there is so much great information and misinformation out there. So I want to make sure you get exactly what you need to know so you can build your confidence as well. So keep on letting me know where you're watching from. Oh, we got another Pennsylvania. Excuse me. I love it. All right. So what we are going to be going through for today. Oops. There we go. All right. So there is going to be no more wondering if you need to air down your tires because you're going to know for sure. No more confusion on what PSI to air down to. So let's jump in and break this down together. We're going to go through all of this together today as we're working through this. So, welcome to the Air Down Your Jeep Tires for Trail Riding Fun class for today for our Wednesday. All right. So, our first thing, number one, yes, you absolutely need to air your tires down. I have heard misinformation about this. I've heard about people getting misinformation about this. But yes, you absolutely need to air your tires down. So, do you need to air your tires down for the beach? Yes. You need to air your tires down for the mud? Yes. Even Forest Service type roads? Yes. So, number two, now that you know, yes, you need to air them down, why are you going to air your tires down? What you're going to get is added traction for your Jeep when you air your tires down. What that does is, if you've ever seen a flat tire, you can tell it's flat because there's the tire squishes, right? And there's a lot of tire on that ground surface. So when you air your tires down, it actually is going to lower the PSI. The tire is going to get a little softer, a little more pliable. But you're also going to notice as you do that, that footprint is going to expand, which means there's going to be more rubber contact to whatever surface you are going to be trail riding on or what the tire is going to be on. So in this picture, you can see this is an aired down tire, and you can actually see where the rock is and how the tire itself is molding around that rock. So that's giving you added traction so that your tires are actually helping you and aiding as you are out on the trail. This is super important if you're going to be out doing rocks where you're going to need extra traction, extra grip from your tire. It also is going to lessen the chance of puncturing your tire. Favorite example, imagine a balloon, just a regular balloon. You know, when you blow it up and it expands, when it's full of air, it doesn't take much to pop it, right? Like you could rub it up against the wall and it's going to pop. If you were to let some of that air out, so now that balloon is not fully inflated, you let some air out, that balloon becomes squishier. Like you can actually take it and squish it and the air moves, and it's so much harder to pop that balloon. It's kind of the same idea with your tires. So some places actually require that you air down to a specific PSI. Perfect example. This is a picture from our OBX excursion event that we just did. It was amazing, by the way. But where we went, they require that you air down your tires to a minimum of 20 PSI. So sometimes the places you're going to be going to trail ride, the beaches you're going to be going on will actually require that you air your tires down. Some of these beaches, like where we were at the Outer Banks for our excursion event, they will ticket you if you have not aired down your tires to the correct PSI, especially if you get stuck. And part of the reason why we are doing this and why you want to air down your tires is to tread lightly and do the right things. So, if you're not familiar with tread lightly principles are to travel responsibly, respect the right of others, educate yourself, which you are doing right here, right now, being on here, avoid sensitive areas, and do your part. So, airing down your tires fits into this because you need to travel responsibly, which means you're not going to tear up the sand, dig down, make big ruts, tear up the mud, tear up the gravel that you are riding on for a Forest Service road. You are trying to help to protect and to travel responsibly and do your part by airing your tires down. Because if you keep your tires aired up and you're not a four-wheel drive, if you hit a section and your tires start to dig down or you lose traction, you spin your tires, that is going to do damage to the actual terrain, whether it be sand, sand dunes, dirt, mud, clay, gravel, no matter what you're on. When you lose traction and start to spin your tires, you are going to do damage to that actual terrain that you're on. So airing down is just one way that you can do your part. Make sure that you're traveling responsibly because you're going to set yourself up for success. You're going to minimize the risk. There's always a risk of losing traction, of getting stuck. But if you follow and do the correct pieces, you're setting yourself up to be prepared and you are less likely. So you always want to air down your tires. Again, that's why you want to air down your tires, not only for traction, which is a big deal. Let your tires do the job that you bought them for. Making sure that you are taking care of those tires and you're taking care of where you are trail riding. Number three, what do you air down to? This is probably one of, besides, no, you don't need to air down. This is probably the second most, I don't want to say controversial, but where you're going to get the most varying opinions and answers. So let's break this down together. First thing, you need to know what type of terrain and obstacles you're going to be driving on. Believe it or not, this does help to dictate at what PSI you want to lower your tire pressure to. Like I said, some places like beaches and sand dunes will have a required PSI to air down to. If you know that you are going to be on rocks, rocky terrain, ledges, climbs, somewhere where there's going to be ruts, where there's going to be washes, you want to make sure that you air down appropriately. So, especially on rocks where you need that added extra traction, it's going to be important to make sure that you have aired down correctly. But with that, you need to know what part of the country you're going to be in. Again, what type of terrain you are on. This is a picture from Moab. I'm sharing my lessons. So depending on what part of the country you are in and what the terrain is like, the rocks differ. So sometimes you're out on the West Coast versus Midwest versus East Coast. The rocks are going to change based on the part of the country that you are in. So, just a quick tip, if you're out in Moab, on these dark, porous rocks and ledges that have a lot of traction, especially if it is a hot time of the year, when it's almost 100 degrees outside and the rock surfaces are really hot, you don't need to air down quite as much because you have so much traction. And actually, if you air down too low, you might be fighting your tires because you're getting too much traction. I learned that the hard way. I had to adjust based on the part of the country I was in and the terrain that I was on. So knowing that, how much traction you're going to have, how porous are the rocks, what is the temperature outside, what is the temperature of the ground surface that you're going to be driving on. Those are all important things to know to help determine what you're going to air down to. Before you air down, you need to know how you're going to air back up. Do you have a portable air system that you can hook into your Jeep so you can air your tires back up when you finish the trail ride? Do you have onboard air? Is there a gas station that's going to be close? You just want to know where you are going to be going to air your tires back up before you air them down. And here is one of the most important pieces that is going to dictate. So you already know what terrain you're going to be on, what part of the country you're in. Those play a part in it. But you also have to know your wheels and tires. This is your direct answer to what PSI you should air down to. Here's our general air down rule. Ladies, I err on the side of caution. I'm not saying you can't go lower or you don't let as much out. This is where I feel like your safe range is, which means you're not at a high risk to lose the seal of your wheel to your tire, and you have aired down enough that you're going to get better traction, you are going to protect your tire, and you're going to have a bigger footprint. So if you have a traditional wheel, this is what comes stock on your vehicle. This is most upgraded wheels are a traditional wheel. When you go to air down, you want to air down to between 15 and 18 PSI. Again, this is a safe range. I have seen people air down to 12 with traditional wheels. I personally don't feel like that is as safe for you. You're at a higher risk, especially if you're taking turns on the trail, if you get it mounted on a rock really hard, that you could lose that seal from your wheel and your tire. 15 to 18 psi is what I feel like is your magic number. You've aired down enough that you're going to get better traction. You've aired down enough that you're protecting your tire, and you've gotten your wider footprint. With that said, though, if you have wheels that are 18 inches or larger, you are not going to air down as low as a smaller traditional wheel. I do need to change this. I feel like this is more your 19s and like 19s and 20s. When you start talking about your wheel size, like a 20-inch wheel, you are not going to air down as much. And for that size, your safe zone is no lower than 25 psi. Reason being, you have a much bigger wheel, which means you don't have as much tire surface available in sidewall because of the size of that wheel. So you're at a higher risk at a lower psi of losing that wheel and tire. This is where knowing your wheels and tires is going to be so important. Then we're going to talk about beadlock wheels. So a true beadlock wheel is an aftermarket wheel that you can get, and it does not require air pressure to hold the tire and the wheel together. In this picture, you can see it looks like there's a ring that is going around, and you don't see the lip of the tire. It's covering up the lip of the tire. That is what a beadlock is. Now they've come out with new internal beadlocks and double beadlocks, but this was your beadlock wheel choice for a really long time. What it does is instead of needing to seal the tire to your wheel with air pressure, and that's what holds it together, when these are put together, it actually is that ring. So you kind of think about like a sandwich. So that ring goes around and sandwiches that wheel and tire together, which means you can run a lower PSI and not be at a risk to lose that wheel and tire seal because it doesn't require air to keep it. Now, does that mean you can air it down all the way to like 4 on a single beadlock? That's not safe. Again, I've seen people do it, but you still have a risk that you can lose that if you go too low. So a safe range, if you have a beadlock wheel, is between 8 and 12 psi. Now you might be asking, why would I need a beadlock? Beadlock wheels really come into play when you start talking about harder level trails where the terrain's going to be harder, the ledges are going to be bigger, the rocks are going to be bigger. You need as much traction as possible. So you want to be able to air down your tire as low as possible safely. So that is when you start seeing people upgrade to a beadlock wheel, because believe it or not, there's a huge difference between 8 psi and 15 psi, especially when you are talking about climbing big ledges, climbing big rocks, makes a big difference. Now, if you are out in the desert, if you are out in Moab in the summer and it's hot, and some of those rocks and trails look like asphalt, and it gets hot like that, you don't want to air down as low. You're going to air down, if you have a traditional wheel, you'd air down to about 18. If you have a beadlock wheel, you would air down to about 15. Reason being, you get so much traction. When we start talking about a porous surface with heat, you may have to adjust a little bit because you also don't want to put too much stress on your transmission that your tires actually have too much grip. So again, know where the terrain you're riding on, where in the country you are, and what type of wheel and tires you have. This is your safe range guide for you so that you know if you air down in between these ranges, you are absolutely safe. But there are some things to think about for safety once you have aired down. These are important. Do not take corners and turns at high speeds. So if you need to drive to a gas station to air back up, you can drive your vehicle, your Jeep, on the road with its tires aired down. You just want to stay at a slower speed, and you don't want to be taking turns really fast or really sharp, tight turns. That is where you're at a higher risk again for losing that wheel and tire seal. Same thing on the trail. You want to be careful that you don't crank the wheel and pin it and really try to make a tight turn with resistance there once you have aired down. Always carry a tire gauge to check once you have aired down and when you are airing back up. The newer Jeeps have this awesome feature where it shows you on your dash what air pressure each tire is at. Remember, that's a sensor that does that. Some sensors actually can take up to 5 miles of rotation before they read correctly. So do not ever air down by watching the gauges on your dash, and do not air back up with that. Make sure that you have either a digital gauge, or I like the old fashioned tire gauges. I always carry multiple with me. I put one up in the cubby. I have one in my glove box, one in my center console, and two in the little hatch that opens in the back, just because then I know I have one within reach anywhere if I need it. And I always keep extras, but make sure you have that actual gauge and do not rely on your sensors and your readings on your dash on these newer Jeeps, because I have seen it happen. You'll air down and be like, "Ah, I've been airing down forever." And it still says that I'm at 25 PSI. And then you put a tire gauge to it and it's at 12. Or I've been airing up forever and it says I'm only at 30 pounds. They get driving down the road and all of a sudden it reads 52. So make sure that you don't rely on those sensors, and that you are in control and you actually manually check that. So again, give me a hashtag yes if you're looking for a safe way to enjoy your Jeep on the trails and you're ready to increase your knowledge, skills, and confidence for you and your Jeep. Today was just one specific area that I feel like is so important to cover together. All right, ladies, I'm going to make sure if you have any questions before we finish up, make sure to drop those in the chat. That way, I just want to make sure I am not missing anything. That's why we're on here today. If you have questions, please ask them. That's why we've done this. I wanted to go ahead and give you what I feel like is the most important information so you're confident and that you know what to do for you and your Jeep. You don't need to rely on other opinions, outside influences, because again, everyone does things differently. I came up with that, what I feel like is your safest range and zone. You understand what determines why you air down, when you air down, and how much you're going to air down too. So I want to make sure I don't miss any questions while we are on here, because I will be really honest with you. Part of what I'm always honest. So here's like some hashtag hard truth honesty here. I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus because I don't believe in that. But I heard while we were out at our Moab event, that there's some other education out there, and that uh, they may bring forward to people that they don't need to air down their tires when they go out trail riding. So I wanted to make sure to jump in and share the knowledge and education with you ladies, because like I shared, there are reasons that you want to air down your tires. You know, once you get comfortable with it, you're talking 5 to 8 minutes to air your tires down. It doesn't take a large amount of time. As you're learning, you need to practice. Today was just about going over, yes, you need to air them down, why you need to air them down, and what you need to air them down to so you can be safe. I will bring forward for next week. We'll go ahead and jump in and actually go down into how to air your tires down together. That's the next step. But really, honestly, that's why I brought this forward and did this class today, because I want to make sure that you have the best trail ride as possible. And you know what to do for you. So if you ever go somewhere and people say to you, like, oh, don't worry about it, you don't need to air your tires down, you can say, you know, I believe in tread lightly. I believe in um, airing my tires down, and here's why. Or, hey, I'm good, thanks. I'm just going to go ahead and air down. That's normally what I do. But I just wanted to share that. So that's why if you have any questions, I want to make sure they are all answered before we jump off. I don't want to miss any questions. There are no dumb questions here. That's why we go through this. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We're all learning. And to learn, you have to ask questions. So if you have a question, I guarantee someone else on here watching has the same question. And again, we are all about support here, and there are absolutely no dumb or stupid questions. Absolutely. Oh, I love it. So it says, Kristen, you just solved a little argument I've been having with my hubby and backed it up with evidence. I love that. Yay, no more arguing. Melissa, great question. Yes, this is for riding on the beach too. Um, Depending on, like, again, knowing where you're going, is it going to be hard packed sand on the beach? Is it going to be deeper, loose sand? Are there dunes? Some beaches do not allow you to ride on the dunes. Some of the beaches have harder, compact sand, some are deeper. So that does play a little bit of a part into knowing your terrain. On a hard packed sand beach, you don't need to air down as much. If you're going to be in a deeper sand, you want to air down because you want that footprint to be wider. Because if you think about it, imagine if you're on the beach, a skinny tire is going to be more likely to dig down in the sand, and a wider tire is going to help to stay up above, up on the sand. So yes, you do want to air down just so you can get that wider footprint. Again, especially in deeper sand or dunes that you are allowed to ride on. You just have to know. But yes, you do want to air down for sand and for beaches. This is a great question. I'm going to actually write a note about this really quickly. I have a class that I did, one of my hashtag hard truth classes about imitation beadlocks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write this on my notes. We're going to go ahead and do a class on this. Because I will tell you, nowadays, it can be a little bit harder to tell what is a traditional beadlock, like a real beadlock versus an imitation beadlock for looks. It can be a little bit harder just because now that they have the internal beadlock and the double beadlock, it can be a little bit harder because now there's still a lip, so you can see the lip from the tire and the wheel because it's internal instead of external. I will tell you though, if they have an external ring on them, let me pull this slide back up really quickly. This is just kind of a quick, brief way to be able to tell a real beadlock from an imitation beadlock. Let me show this. Okay. So if you are looking at a Jeep that has a wheel and it has a ring on it, if it is a true beadlock, if you go up and look, you're going to notice that the tire is not up here on top of the ring like it is on like you don't see a lip of the tire. It is actually hidden under the ring because the ring is keeping that wheel and tire together. If it's an imitation beadlock, so it looks like it has a ring, but you notice that the tire lip is actually right up here on the top of the wheel, just like it is on a traditional wheel, then that is an imitation beadlock. Hard thing is, like I said, with the internal beadlock, it can be a little bit harder to determine, but if it has the ring like this, so an external ring, you are not going to see the lip of the tire. You are, for a real beadlock, if it's an imitation, then the lip of the tire is going to be up here at the top, not underneath it. So that is the easiest way to tell. If you were to walk up to it and visually look at it, you can see the difference based on how the wheel and tire are mounted together. But that was such a great question that I'm going to go ahead and we'll do a specific class on an imitation versus a real beadlock. And then we'll go into what an internal beadlock is and what the double beadlock is. So we'll really dive into beadlocks because I know there can be questions about the beadlock themselves. Great question. Janine, when you ask about the width of the tire, the only way that it's going to affect what you air down to is the size of the wheel. Um, so as long as, so like, let's say you have a 1050 wheel or 1050 tire on a 17-inch wheel, you're going to air down the same that you would with a 1250 wide. Now, if you have a 20-inch wheel with a 1050, you're going to air down minimally, like I said, no less than 25. Like, I recommend you stay closer to 30, depending on what you normally run and the size of your tires. But then if you're on a 1250 on a bigger wheel, that means that you're going to have a little more tire because it's a wider tire. So for a bigger wheel, it will make a difference. On the 17s, 18s, I air them down the same if they're a 1050 versus a 1250. So hopefully that's helpful. But again, wheel size is really what makes the biggest difference, not tire width or tire size. Like I said, a 1250 is going to give you a little more width, so a little more tire on a bigger wheel than a 1050. So you can play around a little bit with that. Great question. If I'm aired down, what is a safe speed to drive to get to a gas station? So my safety patrol, I am known for safety patrol. My safety patrol in me says don't run more than 45 miles an hour if you're aired down. With that said, if you're aired down to 20 psi, you can run 45, 50. If you are aired down to 15 psi, I would say stay about 40. So it's knowing what you're aired down to. And again, that's airing on caution. I know people who will run 55, 60 aired down. Again, you just need to know how low you have aired down to and what you are comfortable with speed wise. But you can safely run about 40 as long as you are not aired down below 15 psi. So just keep that in mind. Great question. Oh, Cindy, this is so sometimes I see this happen. My first trail ride I did airing down was mentioned but not recommended. Now I see that the final obstacle definitely needed airing down. I'm thankful we made it out safely. I am too. Just remember, if you air down, you'll be prepared. That's some of it too. Even if you're on a Forest Service road that's mostly flat gravel, if you come around a corner and there's a wash or something has happened, where you're going to get off camber, you're dropping a tire down, maybe you have to climb over a ledge. If you're aired down, one, the ride quality is going to change too. I didn't mention that one. Your ride quality will improve if you air your tires down. Because again, we're thinking about that balloon, right? So if you're bouncing your balloon, it bounces way up when it's full of air. If you let a little bit of air out, it barely bounces. Same thing with your tires while you're driving down the road. So even if it's a Forest Service gravel road, if you're driving down it, your Jeep tires are going to be bouncing, which means it's going to be a rougher ride for you as a driver and your passengers. But you're also putting all that bounce and concussion on all of your front end components. You hear death wobble talked about a lot. A majority of the time when we are talking about death wobble, it's from wear on front end parts that are worn out or are not adjusted correctly. So think about that. If you air down a little bit as you're going over, it's going to be a softer ride. So your front end parts are still moving and taking concussion, but you're not getting all that extra boom, boom, boom as you're going on that gravel. So that's helping the longevity of the front end parts of your vehicle as well. So that's another reason to think about it. I know I want my Jeep to last as long as possible, and I want my front end pieces to last as long as possible. I don't want to be upgrading stuff and wearing out knuckles and ball joints and having to worry about things like that. So that's something to keep in mind as well. That is just another reason that I recommend. It is always great to air down just a little bit. Oh, so sweet. She said she had the best trail rides in Moab because she listened to me. Oh, you are so sweet. I love it. Great questions here. So again, the bead locks I feel like are needed when you're going to start moving up to more advanced trails where you really need to air down as much as possible. Um, is it better to have bead locks if you don't trail ride as much? Just beach. So you would not need those. Because you're not ever going to be in a position where you want to or need to air down below 15 psi on a beach. So that's something to think about. So, because your footprint is going to be nice and wide at 15, it's going to help give you that extra wide footprint, keep you up, and you're going to be less likely to dig down in the sand. So, a bead lock would not, in my opinion, would not ever be necessary to invest in for beach and sand dunes. You see it become a necessity when you start talking about rocky terrain, ledges, where you're having to crawl like up and over things, over rocks, like making your way, picking your way like through riverbeds or rock beds. The rocks are what really start leaning you towards a beadlock because that is where you're going to get your maximum benefit of being aired down as low as possible. And that's across the country. That's out in California in the mountains, all the way over to Tennessee, up in Pennsylvania and Roush. Anywhere when you start adding rocks is where you're going to want to look at beadlocks and ledges and hill climbs and things like that. But on the beach or sand dunes, you are going to be great with a traditional wheel, and you would never need to make that financial investment. Oh, I'm so glad you learned something new today, Andrea. Woohoo! That's why we are on here. I love it. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It helped a lot. I love it. So excited. So thank you. That's what my goal was for this. And I see people jumping on. Oops. Let me stop sharing and get back to where I was. Okay. I see some new ladies jumping on. Let me know where you're watching from if you're jumping on. I love to know what states and locations are watching. That helps me when we start putting our live events together. All right. So, really quickly, the biggest problem is that maybe someone has told you wrong. So maybe you've already heard the wrong way of, no, you don't need to air down. Airing down's not important. You only have to air down if you're on hard trails. So maybe you've already heard that. So the great news is we covered the facts together today. That's what this air down your Jeep tires for trail riding fun was all about. So really quickly, what we covered is one, yes, yes, yes. You absolutely need to air your tires down if you're going out on a trail, out on the beach, going out on an adventure with your Jeep. Once you are getting off your main paved road, yes, 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 you absolutely need to air your tires down. And remember why we air our tires down. We air our tires down for added traction to help to protect our tires and to tread lightly so that we are less likely to do damage on the trails that we are on, or the beach, or the sand, wherever it is that we might be. And remember that to air down, you need to know what to air down to. So you need to know what terrain are you riding on? What part of the country you're going to be in? Do you have traditional wheels? Are they 17s, 18s, or larger? And are they traditional or beadlocks? Those are what are going to determine what you actually air down to. So mark your calendar for every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Jump on right here, enjoy a cup of coffee with Kristen and Talking Jeeps. Every week, I share with you a specific topic like we did today to help really dive into that understanding and what you need to know when you get ready to head out there on the trail with your Jeep. That is what this is all about. So every Tuesday, put it on your calendar, can jump on right here. We always are shifting our subjects. We go from building your Jeep to trail riding and specifics of each of those that are really going to help you as you are on your Jeep journey. So I am bringing forward Jeep education and knowledge to you to make sure that you are confident in every aspect of your Jeep journey. I want to see you out there taking adventures, going places, being safe, and enjoying every moment for you and your Jeep. So thank you again for jumping on here with me today. I love seeing, Wisconsin, Texas. I love seeing the states that you ladies have been watching from. And I love all the hashtag yeses that you're looking for a safe way. You want more knowledge, more education, more confidence to get out there safely, correctly, and know exactly what you need to be doing for you in your Jeep. So thank you for that today. I want to make sure I haven't missed any comments before we jump off. Great question. Make sure you jump on and watch the replay to get all the information because I know I just did a really quick recap, but I want to make sure I answer all questions. Um, Great questions. You have a 20-inch wheel with 37s and you are at Roush Creek. Roush Creek means you're going to have a lot more rocks. That's going to be a little bit harder terrain. With a 20-inch wheel, I recommend that you stay about 20 to 25 psi. Don't go below 20 psi. With that bigger wheel, you're going to be at a higher risk for losing that seal because you don't have as much sidewall depth and as much tire on that bigger wheel. So that's just something to think about. So yes, I would recommend between 20 and 25, especially at Roush Creek, because you are going to be out there in those rocks. So you want as much traction as you can get while you're out there on the rocks, but you want to make sure that you are safe with that level so you don't risk pinning that tire and losing that air pressure that's holding those together. Oh, we got another main and another yes. I love it. All right, ladies, I don't see any questions that weren't answered. If you jump back and watch through this, like Tiffany, so make sure you don't miss anything. If you jump back on here, watch through this, and other questions come up for you, just drop the comments and I will jump in and answer questions because I really want to make sure that you have the correct knowledge and understanding as we were talking about airing your tires down and how that relates to trail riding safely for you, your Jeep, and for the where you are. The conditions of the terrain that you're on. I'll be really honest. Sometimes people think, oh, it's a Forest Service road or a national forest. We don't need to air down. Believe it or not, the damage that is being done with ruts being torn up, um, terrain being torn up, whether it be grass, whether it be the sand being dug down into huge ruts. When you talk national forest, state forest, anything that's maintained, when you start seeing damage done to those, that is what is closing trails the fastest to us. It's not the off-road parks. Some of them get tired of damage, people cutting trails, garbage, all those things. But believe it or not, on anything that's maintained by the county, state, or federal, when there starts to be damage done that can be avoided, they just start closing and gating off those trails. So some of this information is not only to keep you safe, your Jeep safe, but to help keep our areas open so that we all can enjoy those together. So we all have to do our part. These are just little things you can do that are going to make a difference when you get out there and are having just these amazing experiences and adventures with you and your Jeep. You can feel good. Like, you know what? I'm doing my part. I put in the 8 minutes. As you're learning, it might be 20, but I put in the 20 extra minutes so that when I'm out here and I pass the forest ranger, I feel good. Like I did my part. I took my time. We want to keep this open for everyone. So please keep that in mind as well. This is about you. This is about your Jeep, but this is also about everyone and how we have to work together to do these little things to ensure that we get to take our kids out on these trails, or the next generation will get to go out and explore these national forests and national parks, and they won't be gated off for four-wheel drive vehicles. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent. That is my 2 cents worth on that one, but I feel very passionately about that. we get to go out and experience. Like, we have the ability to go places with our Jeep, to create adventure, and to get out there and do these amazing things. So I want to keep that open for everyone. Oh, Tiffany, I will be changing to 17s next year, and I'm from Florida. So now in Florida, you would be good with the 20-inch wheel, because you're talking sand. But yeah, when you get up north, like to Roush, and you start looking, if you went to like Tennessee, Pennsylvania, even West Virginia, some of the climbs, a 17 would be a little more beneficial, so you could air down a little bit lower and not have the worry or fear of losing a wheel and a tire while you're out on the trail. So I think that is a great plan. So excited. All right, ladies, thank you for jumping on here, listening to me rant a little bit here at the end. Spend some time with me. Don't forget, we'll be right back on here next Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm going to add how to air down your tires. So we will go over using an air down tool. We'll go over using plugs, and what you need to know to perform airing down your tires. So I will see you next week. Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic Wednesday, rest of your week. And if I don't see you before then, have an amazing Jeep end. Get out there and take those adventures. So thank you again, ladies. See you later.